This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another NHL team season preview video. 32 teams in 32 days here on the Ice Guys. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith with you, and it is time to talk St. Louis Blues for the upcoming season. This is a team that, of course, is in the midst of a rebuild after a lot of successful years, including the Stanley Cup in 2019. The St. Louis Blues kind of rebuilding this roster from the ground up. We saw them jettison a lot of the veterans, a lot of the older players that have been on this hockey team for the last couple of years. And it'll be interesting to see just how quickly this process unfolds as far as the rebuild goes for the Blues. The one thing you want to note going back to last year with this hockey team is that offensively, middle of the pack with their power play last season for the St. Louis Blues. So not terrible, not great by any stretch of the imagination. The penalty kill last year for St. Louis was also, right in the middle pretty much of the NHL. So they didn't have terrible special teams, not great either, but they weren't terrible. They were middle of the pack in both areas. Offensively last year, the St. Louis Blues were bottom, third, I would say, of the league as far as goals for, 2.85 goals per game. Defensively last year, they actually weren't that bad. They were close to the middle of the pack, 3.02 goals against per game. So a little bit better defensively last year than they were offensively. You look at the roster heading into this upcoming season, there's not a bad group to work with up front, especially the top line. I like the top line. The top line could be very good, for this St. Louis Blues team. Of course, you can say that for a lot of teams. There's a reason the three forwards are on each team's top line is because they're probably three of the best scorers, best forwards on the team. But when you look at the potential of a Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, and our guy, won't you be my neighbor, Jake Neighbors on that top line, you've got the potential for something really good. I like all three players. Robert Thomas has clearly become one of the best forwards on this, one of the best players, period, on this hockey team. Jordan Kyrou can be a little streaky at times, but we know he is definitely a capable offensive dynamo. And Jake Neighbors, the leap in his game last year was gigantic. And I think he's ready to take on a bigger role, a top-line role, after what we saw from Neighbors. Unfortunately, we're not going to get those plus 300, plus 350 value goal props probably with Jake Neighbors this season that we cashed in with so often last year. I think when you look at the second line, Braden Shen is a player that can deliver some offense, but he's also going to be responsible, be good away from the puck, give leadership, which he's done. But he's been a consistent 20-goal scorer for the most part in his NHL career. You got to think he's got a chance to deliver that again. What are you going to get from a potential second line winger combination that he's going to have with him, with Pavel Buchnevich, who did have a pretty solid year last year, 63 points, 27 goals, and Brandon Saad, the veteran for the St. Louis Blues, now at 31 years old. Actually, last year had one of his better seasons in quite some time with 26 goals, 42 points in 82 games for the St. Louis Blues. Will he be able to deliver that again, though? That's going to end up being the big question. The third and the fourth line should be interesting. Alex Tessier now ends up here with this group. Matthew Joseph comes over as well from the Ottawa Senators. I think that's a nice little move. I like Matthew Joseph's game and what we saw from him there in the Canadian nation's capital last year. I think he can add a little bit of not only sandpaper, physicality, tough on the puck, good forecheck, but can chip in offensively as well. And I like, a bold move. It probably pissed off Stan Bowman, Jeff Jackson, and the Edmonton Oilers brass a little bit, no question. The offer sheet that Doug Armstrong threw out there toward both Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway of the Edmonton Oilers, but the Oilers not matching those two offer sheets means they are now members of the St. Louis Blues. And I like Dylan Holloway's game. And I think it's just a tip of the iceberg what we saw from him in Edmonton, especially in the playoffs. What I like about Holloway is that he didn't have the best regular season. And what I like from him is he actually elevated and was better in the playoffs when the games got tougher. Things get harder in the playoffs. And yet I thought Dylan Holloway's best work with the Edmonton Oilers last year was in the postseason. That's what I like to see. You step up your game when the games become more challenging and critical and important. And we saw that from Dylan Holloway last year. Great speed, great offensive potential for him. Now, I know there's some sites, including RotoWire, that I'm looking at here, have him on the fourth line. He will not be a fourth line player for this team. He's got to be in a bigger role than that. There's no question. And I think if Bannister here is smart, the head coach for the St. Louis Blues, then there's no doubt you make room for him in a top six. Third line minimum, but I think he should even make a case to be in the top six, especially with what we saw from him in the playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers last year. You do have a decent amount of forward depth when you're looking at, Kapanen, even though, you're not always sure what you're going to get from him. I also like Radek Faksa. That's a sneaky little lad from the Dallas Stars. He's not going to give you much offense, but he's going to be great defensively. Gives you more depth at the center position, which is always important. So getting Radek Faksa from Dallas, nice move for the Blues. So the forward group does have potential, especially now when you add Holloway to it. There's no doubt their top six in particular could be. People won't look at the St. Louis Blues as, wow, think at the top of their head, right? Off the top of their head that, wow, that's going to be a great top six. Well, if the top line fires like I think they could, if Saad doesn't have a huge drop-off, if you get Buchnevich kind of replicating what he did last year to go with Shen, and you throw in Holloway and find a spot for him in there somehow, you've got a top six that could be nice and productive here for the St. Louis Blues. The blue line, there are some more questions. There's no doubt. You got an aging blue line in a lot of cases. Justin Falk, I worry that his best hockey is not in front of him. It was behind him. I worry about that. I worry about Nick Leddy as well. Is his best hockey still in front of him, or is it behind him? This is now well into his 30s defenseman that's now likely starting on the top pair this year for the St. Louis Blues. That's a concern. I like Colton Parayko, but even he's seen a little bit of a diminish in his overall game. Still got the good shot, skates well for a big man. He always did. But his defensive game, maybe not like it was, say, when they won the Cup a few years ago in 2019. Perunovich is a guy that's been injury prone early in his career. That's troubling. Anytime I see Ryan Suter on a team, that's troubling at this stage of his career. And Philip Broberg, look, we saw some dynamite stuff from Philip Broberg in Edmonton in the playoffs. He did. But again, you're going to have to ask this of him for an 82-game season. Night in, night out. Can you get it done? Can you be consistent? And that was an issue with him in Edmonton. Consistency. Why did it take so long for Broberg to freaking crack the lineup? Well, lack of consistency. That's why. Lack of getting it done night in and night out. You got to do that now here in St. Louis. But there is great upside for Philip Broberg. No question about that. The heart goes out to, I'm sure, for Alex as well, and me, to Torrey Krug. I mean, just to see him near tears, talking about yet another injury, a season lost for him due to an ankle surgery, due to arthritic conditions that prompted the need for that ankle surgery, causing him to miss this entire season, and the very real possibility we may have already seen the last of Torrey Krug in the NHL. It's gut-wrenching to see him, in that press conference just a few weeks, just near tears and just completely demoralized about this turn of events that he may not be playing in the NHL again because of this injury setback, and it might be forced to retire earlier than he would want. So that's just no one wants to see that, and you just feel bad, and heart goes out to Torrey Krug at this time. And look, this is another guy, Torrey Krug, that if he did play this year, you'd worry, is he still the same defenseman he was in his prime in Boston? Probably not. But still, you're going to miss him. That's minutes that Bannister is going to have to fill on the blue line now. And so that's the biggest concern I've got with St. Louis here, this blue line. I mean, I see a lot of aging, maybe over the hill in some cases, veterans. I worry about Leddy, in a role where he's going to have to play 25-plus minutes a night at this stage of his career. I worry about that with Justin Falk as well. Parayko had a little, dip in his overall defensive game last year. Perunovich has been injury prone. Can we count on him to be on the ice for 82 games this year? Suter, it goes without saying. We don't have much faith or confidence there at this stage of his career. Broberg, can he show up every night? Huge ceiling for Broberg. But again, can you get it done every single night? There's that big question there. And then in net, which Binnington is it going to be? Jordan Binnington, the guy that, just caught on like a freight train when the Blues won the Cup. in 2019, or is it the more inconsistent, up and down, one night great, one night shelled and giving up 5 or 6 and pulled and yelling at the players from the other team and trying to fight someone from the other team? And that's the kind of yo-yo ups and downs we got from Jordan Binnington last year and even 2 years ago. So that's going to be the question mark there, is his night-to-night consistency. Same with Joel Hofer, who's, got a lot of starts last year. His numbers actually weren't that bad. 2.65 goals against, 913 save percentage, and the Blues like Joel Hofer. Are we going to maybe see a little bit more of him this year as a result of Binnington, having the ups and downs? I think it could be more of a platoon, believe it or not, this year. Because if you look at it, those were solid, steady numbers for Hofer for extended times last year. And I think that might give the coaching staff the confidence to say, you know what, maybe this is more of a 1A, 1B with Binnington and Hofer this year, as opposed to just saying, let's give Binnington 60, 65 starts and only, 20 or less to Hofer. It could be more of a balance as far as the starts we see between the two St. Louis Blues netminders this upcoming season. But look, this is a team right now where I like overs with them. I don't have a strong feel for the St. Louis projections. They're not going to be a playoff team. The West, to me, is too difficult. But I think what you will see from them is an improved offense. I am petrified of the defense. That's what holds me back on the playoff projection for this team, is just that blue line is just, it's old, it's decrepit. It's guys that have not been able to stay healthy. And even Perunovich, the younger guy of the bunch, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. That petrifies me for St. Louis. And again, the Binnington-Hofer combination, still a bit of an unknown, especially Binnington, that, again, I could see Hofer really getting a lot more starts this year. But I think they'll be able to score goals. And I think Holloway really infuses that top six. And they do have more depth, I think, at the forward group than they did last year. So I think game totals over. Basically the strongest opinion I have with St. Louis going into the season. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be able to score, and I question about that defensive acumen that they have going into the season, just because that blue line, holes galore on paper, in my opinion. Alex, what do you think of the St. Louis Blues?
It is easily one of the biggest Jekyll and Hyde teams heading into this season by far. We could say that this is a bad lineup and this is an old team, or an aging team, or we could say that this is a team that's got a bunch of grown ass men who can actually go out there and grind out 60 minutes at a given time and beat any team on any given night. And I think it's more of the latter in that equation. I actually think this is a playoff team based so much more on the rest of the Central Division. Chicago's not ready yet. We'll talk about Utah. I'm not thinking Utah is ready yet. Minnesota, we've already talked about them. I think they have a big drop off. And Winnipeg, the team we'll talk about later, that I'm not high on at all. And when you look at what St. Louis has moving forward, they have only 3 draft picks all of next year. They're in a complete rebuild mode. Why not go for broke this season with a bunch of 39-year-old guys, mid 30s, early 30 guys, and I'm saying as high as 39 with Ryan Suter in the lineup, and a team that, like you said, they can find ways to grit out wins. This was a 92-point team last year, despite having all the injury issues, despite having to make a change in coach with Drew Bannister. Which I think that's going to be another big help, having him solidified and having a full camp under him. We talked about that with some other teams. Coaches coming in and having their full camp and really getting to instill their kind of systems and their philosophies into a training camp. I think this is a St. Louis team that can be dangerous. I like overs with them, but I think they're going to be a pesky underdog at times. Their schedule's kind of balanced out where they have a couple of long road trips, but some solid home trips as well. So I think there'll be some good spots to pick and choose when to bet on or against St. Louis. But I did take a shot with them to make the playoffs, plus 172 at FanDuel, and also have over 86.5 points, minus $1.10 that's available at FanDuel too. Shop around for that because I'm seeing variance anywhere between 86 to 88 points with St. Louis. So obviously you want to look for the lowest number and go over that. But I think the St. Louis team, like I said, I think they can stay relatively healthy enough. Get some, they're not going to have any all stars by any stretch of the imagination. Robert Thomas is really their only shining star. If he's a guy who can have a breakout year and maybe give you 35, 40 goals this year, and you can have some of those other role players chip in and give you some solid, steady offense. I agree with you about Holloway. I think his game takes a step up. I think Broberg's game takes a step up too. He's essentially going to be that fill-in spot with Krug being out, and I think we could see his game elevate to another level, and that'd be a great find for St. Louis. And like I said, it's very unfortunate to see how Torrey Krug, possibly the end of his career. But at the same time, that would be addition by subtraction, I think, for St. Louis. Get that $6.5 million off the books over the next 3 years for a guy who's 33 years of age, and now that puts you in a position to where you can make some moves with the rebuild moving forward. So if St. Louis doesn't make the playoffs now, it's probably going to be the end of the next decade before they get back into the postseason. But I think they can push through enough just because this division's still not as strong as it can be or will be in the next couple of years. So this is the end of the line, if you will, for St. Louis as far as being a postseason team this year.
No doubt. For those of you craving the start of the new season, and of course we're craving it, it's right around the corner. We're going to have our season preview shows, Eastern and Western Conference, that first week of October. And then, of course, we get going 7 days a week, every single day, starting with the North American opening night of the season, which is Tuesday, October the 8th. And that's when we begin 7 days a week. But I know you're, craving being able to bet NHL hockey game day in, day out during the season. I'm not going to make you wait until Tuesday, October 8th to tell you. And I'll tell you right now on this preview video that opening night, I'm on St. Louis, Seattle over 5.5. And I really like it quite a bit at that number and at that price. It's currently over 5.5 minus 124 at FanDuel. I just talked about it. I think this St. Louis team offensively is good. It's going to be solid. With Holloway, too, especially if he gets minutes and opportunity. I think they've gotten better scoring depth and better forward depth this year, this lineup, than they had last year. While I have questions about the blue line, as I mentioned, an aging blue line that does concern me greatly. And now you're going to throw Ryan Suter, likely going to start in your third pair. He doesn't make a team better defensively, at this stage of his career. He doesn't. So I worry about the tread on the tires of Nick Leddy. I worry about the tread on the tires of Justin Falk. Some of these aging guys for the Blues, can they keep up foot speed wise at this stage of the career? I'm not sure. We still have some questions about night-to-night consistency with Binnington in net. And then you flip it around to the Seattle equation. We'll talk about this more with the Kraken. They're going to play more up-tempo, push the pace, be more aggressive offensively this year under Dan Bylsma. And I think that's going to benefit them offensively, and they had trouble scoring goals last year, but they didn't play a system that really allowed their offensive players to flourish consistently. So that's going to change this year. So there you go, right away. You don't have to wait till October 8th. Blues Kraken, that day, a matinee game, by the way,
right?
For television purposes. It's the first game of the triple header on ESPN, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 local time out there in Seattle on the West Coast. So there you go. You don't have to wait till opening night. First play of the season. Actually, I've already made a couple bets for opening night, but this is one of them. St. Louis, Seattle over 5.5.
That's actually my only bet that I have as of right now for opening night. Heading into the season. Of course, like I said, we'll have more as we get closer to the dates and games ahead. But like I said, the first 3 nights of the NHL season are widely available at American Books right now, so you can shop around. Like I said, find that 5.5 at over 124 at FanDuel, where I bet that as well. But I totally agree with you, and that's the thing with St. Louis as far as from a betting perspective, night in, night out. I feel like there will be a team that's going to win close games and then lose by margin. So if you like St. Louis, it wouldn't, be in the worst interest on a given night. You like them plus 120. Take a shot with them on the draw as well. It could be a close 3-2, 4-3 kind of a game. But if you're fading them, or it looks like a night where it said Bennington's been running the ground, they're going with Hofer. Or Hofer doesn't quite have it. If the 1A 1B system doesn't work out, Hofer's more of a traditional backup. On a night where you fade him, you can go over 5.5, go with the opponent team total over. I could definitely see them losing a bunch of games, 6-3, 7-3 at times, but I think they can find a way to grit out some wins as well. So close wins and big losses, I think, might be the storyline from a betting perspective for St. Louis.
Yeah, I think that's we're going to see them in a lot of close games. We're going to see them in games where they score and they're up 3-1. Things are looking good, and whoa, they give up the lead. It's going to happen, because the defense to me is where the great concerns are with the St. Louis Blues.
Good note for live betting. Yeah, this could be a team to fade. We talk about Colorado. How much we love Colorado when they're trailing. This is a team where you might look to fade if they have a lead heading in late second period, early third period.
Yep. Fade when they have a lead, maybe bet on in certain instances when they're trailing, because they also, have the offense that I think this year they won't be out of a game down by a goal, down by 2 goals. Too often it felt like they were out of a game when they were down a goal or 2 last year. Like I said, Holloway could make a huge difference. Like if he is showing those flashes in the playoffs with Edmonton consistently in the regular season this year for his new team, the St. Louis Blues, that's going to make them a better offensive team right there. Alone. So a very interesting team to look toward going into this upcoming season. That's the St. Louis Blues. We hope you enjoyed it. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. This has been the St. Louis Blues season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along right here on the Ice Guys.